Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we continue. It's Sports Talk. It's South Carolina Radio Network. It's National Championship night in basketball. We don't care. We're talking football here on Sports Talk.
You're so anti-basketball.
No, I love basketball, but I'm in football mood now. All right, we had USC spring game. We've got other spring games coming up. Clemson's in a couple of weeks. I'm in football mode. You know who else is always in football mode? The man who brought us first and 10 throughout the entire football season. He's back for a special springtime edition of First and 10. That, of course, is the coach, Zach Willis. And I know you could care less about basketball tonight.
There's a basketball game? I didn't know that. Phil.
Yeah, there's one in San Antonio.
Oh, I like the river walk, not the ball game.
I like the commercial with Charles Barkley where he says, I want to go to the Alamode. I want my Alamode and chocolate and whatever topping.
You know, people get mad at you when you call that city San Antonio.
They do?
They do.
Yes, they do.
They don't like that?
They don't like that.
Well,
they don't like that.
It's not my problem. Get over it.
It's like the same people who don't like when you call St. Louis St. Louis. I don't like that either.
I call it St. Louis all the time.
I don't do that.
Cola Town, Chuck Town, right? Huh?
Yeah.
Zach, how are you?
I'll tell you what, Phil, I'm doing great. And I will say this. I will tune in to an NBA pregame, listen to Sir Charles, and turn the channel. That's the kind of fan I am. I love Charles Barkley. The rest of it, oh, well.
Yeah. What'd you think
of?
Nothing
good, won't say nothing at all.
What'd you think of the Gamecock spring game from your observation, watching the replay, the videos, and all that stuff?
Oh, well, I'm a coach, Phil, so I see things a little bit differently. It looked to me, a typical spring game. The one good thing, obviously, is they didn't get anybody hurt. And as far as, the offense being great and all, it looked to me kind of like they kind of set it up maybe as a confidence builder for the offense. And it was. I mean, Bentley looked really good, and I didn't expect anything less out of him. He was really good. I think Edwards had one drop. Other than that, he was really good. Other than that, I didn't see a whole lot of improvement anywhere else. That was, it's an early spring for them, so that's kind of hard to make a lot of leaps when you go that early.
Mm-hmm. Did you see anything in Bentley in his form, things that Werner has been working with him that makes him a different quarterback than he was last year?
I really did. I thought his footwork was sharp. The biggest thing was, the way it was set up. He didn't really. Everything was a kid that talented, and he's experienced now. This kid's won a bunch of ball games. He's coming off a big win over Michigan. He looked sharp for me. I didn't really see a huge difference mechanically in him, but I've always thought he was a good player, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing too, he's not emotional for this. And Pro has talked about this many times. You guys have all hit on it. With him, it's game situation, big game situation, keeping his emotions in check, which I thought he won that battle in the bowl game for the first time maybe in his career. But he looked sharp to me from top to bottom.
What is it about the scheme that they're trying to run that makes the parts around them so adept to wanting to run an up-tempo offense? What do you think is the genesis behind what they're trying to do offensively now?
I think Muschampe's probably nervous. I'm not sure that the media's not driving it, to be honest. I know you can go, wow, I can't believe that. But I thought that, honestly, I didn't see a big difference. The first series, they went down, they went up tempo, and they never did it again. The rest of it just looked like the same old stuff to me. Offensive line, and I will throw this out, they're going to have to step up. And, being a coach, I charted run-throughs, which are basically sacks. And Muschamp controlled the whistle. So if you really weren't looking, Gene Chizik hit on this late in the game, was very nice about it, and I'll try to be. But they basically gave up between about around 19 to 21 sacks or big hits on the quarterback.
Yeah. How many?
19 to 21. And basically what they did was they didn't blow the whistle, but a lot of those touchdown passes, If you go back and look at it, they've got a defensive lineman or linebacker that's already run past Bentley or whoever quarterback would happen to be, and it's just standing there or peeled off so as not to hit them.
Yeah, it certainly looked like the defense was playing soft and not trying to crush anybody, which you would expect in a spring game. But I thought you look at
there's no problem with that. I have zero problem with protecting kids.
You're an old offensive line guy. I mean, I thought Stanley looked good at center for the first game as a center. I thought his snaps looked pretty good. I thought the fact that they used him, and maybe they've done this a lot in the past. I just happened to notice this in the spring game, but using him and Bailey pulling to lead plays mostly to the left, I guess, since Bailey's on the left side. Did you see a difference in maybe the speed and agility on the offensive line?
I thought their lateral movement to get specific was improved. I thought their conditioning was worse. We joke about the horseshoe. There were no horseshoes on that line like there were last year. And of course, again, now when you start spring that early, there's advantages and disadvantages. And one of the disadvantages, they don't get a lot of time in the weight room field to recover from the season. But I definitely thought they were more athletic on the O-line. And when they learned their assignments, that's the big thing, just learning your assignment, knowing who to block, I think they'll be better. I definitely think they've improved at center. And I'm assuming Stanley is the center. Because he did pull, he snapped and pulled, he showed some good athletic ability. And if that carries over and he knows his assignments, which he's learning, you got to be patient with these kids. I think they got a chance to be okay.
And, of course, them starting early, if they've dodged some of these 80-degree temperatures we're going to have over the next few days. But I guess Muschamp will have them out there in the heat the last couple of practices.
I hope so, but they're going to play in it. They got to play in it.
Well,
my thing is, it's always been to make it as much like a game as you can. The problem with spring practice and doing it later is exactly what he said. If you get a bad injury, the kid can't make it back for camp. Now they can make it back for camp with no problem. And then luckily they avoided them, which now they're looking really smart.
Well, Zach, let's talk about the defense, because a couple of questions I had, and the jury's still out, is first of all, Ukwamu, a guy 6'4". I was always old school saying the taller you are, the higher the center of gravity. Can you flip your hips? Can you run? What did you think of him? And also a guy who sort of now seems to have his head on straight, on track to graduate in December. Shameik Blackshear seemed to be standing in the backfield a lot on some of those sacks you said they gave up the other day. What do you think of those two performance on Saturday?
Well, the young 6'4" corner looked fluid when we could see him. You know how it is at DB Pro. I would have had to have been there in person to really see him move, and maybe I'll be able to sneak down there and see him move around in August and be able to tell you for sure. But I'm going to tell you, the game has changed, and the tall corner is in vogue now, whereas, the flank middle fields of the past, just stick like glue. Darrell Green is probably the prototypical small corner. It's an ultra athlete that you just can't get away from. They like the taller guys now, and the key is going to be, and you said it, and that's why we call you the professor. Can he flip his hips? Can he make those zone and man turns and transition and burst like, some of the guys they've had in the past, like Captain Munn, that were not 6'4". And Stephon Gilmore, the Patriots seem to be pretty happy with him. Stephon's more around 6'1.5", 6'2", which is a great size. 6'4" is pushing the boundaries. If this kid turns out to be great, he will be a superstar. If not, they'll probably move him to safety and still be okay.
Yeah, Pro's always been a big hips guy, so I'm not surprised that he was.
Let me tell you what, buddy,
catching the hip action there.
That is the key. That's where football games are won and lost. Is either between the ears. If he got that, it's on the hip.
Not anymore. You can't hit him. You can't, as a coach, you can't hit a guy in the helmet anymore in practice. Apparently, at East Tennessee State, you can't slap a guy in the helmet anymore. It's not in vogue.
Well, no, that ain't been in vogue in a while. But,
yeah. Thank you, Zach.
Hey,
I got slapped, Phil. You got slapped. Y'all probably really got slapped.
They didn't slap me because I wasn't good enough to get slapped. I wasn't worth it. Hey, we got to go. Thank you. We'll do it again after the Clemson game in a couple of weeks, okay?
Got it, guys.
I say, how many
Thank you. Great stuff.
How many football practices did you have the opportunity to get slapped in? I'm sure I had a little bit more than you did.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
All right, thanks to Zach Willis for being with us here on Sports Talk. A little 1st and 10 from the coach, and he'll be back with us after the Clemson spring game on April the 14th. 800-956-7266. Phone number, email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Check out foundersfcu.com. Learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. So a crowd of about what, 25,000 at USC on a beautiful day Saturday?
25,000 listed, I would say.
Yeah,
That's what
they were into it. The fans, they seemed into it.
Again, I don't want to sound like somebody who is speaking sacrilege in the great state of South Carolina. I have made very, very clear my disdain for what spring football has turned into. It has turned into a very big, again, I would almost call it a production. It's kind of like the way Pro Day has come. It is a rehearsal, I would say, of sorts. I think teams try to morph themselves into what they can present themselves to people who are, scouting them for next year, pundits. And what was South Carolina's biggest issue last year? Lack of explosiveness on offense. Well, I'm not accusing of Will Muschamp of doing anything nefarious here, but I'm saying they controlled this scrimmage, is what it was, to make it look like that they had solved some things on offense. But if you listen to what Zach said in our last segment, other than the opening series of the game, it really didn't look much different. There was some good, there was some bad, there was some inconsistency, there was some drops. There were not that many blitzes from the defensive side of the football. I still don't know what the heck they're doing up the middle.
I think that's by design. They weren't going to show their hand on offense or defense. And again, the defenses are so limited. Just watching it on television or the computer, it looked like the defensive guys were told, don't hit them hard. The tackling looked pretty soft. Am I right or wrong about that?
You were absolutely correct. But here's the thing. The thing that I don't like is the people who try to make long conclusions. Like Feinbaum was out there earlier today saying, I looked what they looked in their spring game. I think they're going to be a contender for Georgia next year. Like, how did you get that out of that 2-hour, again, dress rehearsal scrimmage? It was not anything to draw any long-term conclusions on. It's something for the fans, people who can't usually get to the stadium to watch games. It's something to kind of get people, people's motor running and their blood flowing. But other than that, like people who make long-term conclusions based on the spring game, it really just bothers me because you don't watch it.
You can't make any long-term or short-term conclusions until number one is healthy and he's out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they weren't playing with Daddle. They weren't playing with Debo.
No Jamias Williams on defense.
So, they're going to have a lot
Green,
more.
Who logged a lot of snaps for them last year and who's slated to do the same this year, wasn't there. It's an incomplete. You ask me what kind of grade, it's an incomplete. Yeah, we won't know until they take the field against.
And you know what? You don't want to come out of a spring game feeling so good about one thing because that means there's something wrong on the other side. If you love your offense, then you can be mad at your defense and vice versa.
And Will Muschamp had some genuine concerns, and I share those concerns. I think he doesn't know what they're doing at safety. I think that the interior of the offensive line, again, the ends look good, but I still don't know what the heck defensive tackle is going to look like, other than maybe Kinlaw. Outside of that, I'm not completely sold on Keir Thomas moving full time inside. Whether Enigbari steps up, whether somebody else steps up, or they get somebody. There are so many unanswered questions right now, and I don't think we got a lot of the answers that we were looking for.
There's one question that was answered though.
It'll be faster.
Parker White looked more accurate than he did last year.
Well, against no rush, though.
Yeah, but you want an offense that doesn't have to rely on his place kicker to kick it. How many times did he kick it last year? He kicked way too many field goals. You want to cut those in half.
Something.
I like that he made one from 47 and one from 46, but again, against really no rush.
To Danny and Florence, before we hear from Will Muschamp again. Hello, Danny.
Hey, Phil.
Hey.
I got a question for you, and you can answer it, or any of the people is trying to learn from you can answer it. But and it's a legitimate recruiting type question. I'm not trying to bust anybody's chops, but do you feel like it's an embarrassment to Clemson and Carolina to exert so much effort to recruit Zion Williamson, and then Coach K gets him without even trying?
Before I answer that question, I have one for you, Danny. What does Coach K and his Blue Devils do on the night of the national championship game when they're not playing in it? Do they go out and drink heavily?
They probably still analyzing the top 4 players in the country that's on their way there.
Does K have another back surgery about now? I mean, what's get a knee replaced?
I think he collapsed again. Did he not?
No. He's got the top 4 players coming.
Well, so what? He had them last year. What did it get you? Did you get the ring? Huh? No. You didn't get the bling. You didn't get the ring.
I just want to know if any of them are going to be.
Did they get a degree? Did any of them get a degree from Duke? Let me answer that for you. No.
Are any of them going to be as soft as Charmin as Marvin Bagley was? Because he was softer than the way I hit the pillow at night, man.
You know what a Kansas grad told me this week?
Well, I don't care what a Kansas grad told you, because a Kansas diploma is about as worthless as anything. So.
Denny, I hope you live. I hope you live a long life, a long and productive life. But if lightning were to strike you when you hang up this phone, you'll go to your grave knowing that the last time they played, South Carolina beat Duke.
Hey, you hadn't answered my question yet, though.
No, I don't think it is, because if a kid in your state, you have to show them the respect to recruit them. Even if you don't carry the Nike name, that carries a lot of cachet that buys players.
What does that mean?
Explain yourself.
He wants you to explain that.
Watch where the top players go in college and look what shoes they wear, and then answer your own question.
Well, let me say this. I'm gonna make a statement, and then I got a question for Will, if you let me have it.
Of course.
Okay. My question is this. Well, not a question. I'm just telling you what somebody told me. A Kansas grad told me that it seemed like to him that everybody in high school that was qualified, if they could have what they wanted, they would want to play for Coach K.
Well, I'm sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And, all right, and Will, let me ask you this. Are you from Lee Summit?
No.
Does he sound like he's from Lee Summit?
I'm not from Lee Summit. I know where Lee Summit is. I know where Lee Summit is. I'm not from Lee Summit, though.
Are you?
No, but I was actually assigned to an Air Force base near there. But I heard him talking about
Whiteman. Were you near Whiteman?
Yes, I was at Whiteman.
Yeah, in Sedalia, Missouri. Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, no, it's between Sedalia and Warrensburg.
Yeah.
It's in a town called. It's in a place called Nodnoston.
Yes.
Unincorporated.
That's where they have. That's where they have the B. That's where they have the B-2 stealth bombers.
Right. And
great place. Great part of the country.
We had nuclear warheads, ICBM, 65 feet in the ground.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Seriously, I met a guy, a Citadel grad, whose job in the Army was to sit down in that hole and wait for the phone call. You know what I'm talking about?
I know. I know. You told me about that.
Yeah, I met a guy from the Citadel. His job for 15 years or so was to be down in that hole and wait for the phone to ring. And if the phone rang and it had the right code, because he's down how many feet in the ground?
65 feet.
He doesn't know what's going up on Earth. And his job was to push the button.
The commander there today is Brigadier General Paul Tibbets IV, and he's the grandson of Paul Tibbets that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima.
It's in his blood.
Right.
He inherited it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't mean to be nasty about Kansas grads, but I mean, again,
yeah, that was kind of rough.
What comes out of their mouth means no consequence to me.
Rough.
I like Kansas people.
Please.
That's kind of rough.
Kansas
we were once owned by a company.
You know how you feel about the University of North Carolina?
And one of our bosses was a Kansas grad. Rock Chalk Jayhawk. That's all I ever heard from her. Rock Chalk Jayhawk. But they got hammered on Saturday. They got flat out hammered. Kansas.
Let's see. I think 18 for 40.
No, I wanted to say something, but
Villanova.
I'm using discretion.
Villanova shot 18 for 40.
Yeah, they're not going to make 18 threes tonight.
No, they won't take that many. I think they're going to the hole tonight.
Yeah, they're going to be D'd up tonight. Physical. It's Big Ten basketball, baby. Like you ain't never seen it. I'm riding Michigan.
And Villanova will say old-time Big East basketball is coming. Iturbe.
All right, we'll be back. Got some more Will Muschamp coming up.
Was my criticism of the spring game stuff too harsh?
Well, I think you have to keep in mind what a spring game is about. It's really not about real football.
No.
It's about showing some young guys off, getting the vets a few quality snaps out there and not getting anybody hurt. And it's a recruiting tool. That's the thing I was trying to get out. Did it have the atmosphere that would help them in recruiting with the large number of prospects they had on hand? With
a quarter full stadium on a day
25 foul is, it's not bad. I mean, look, you can't. You're not going to do what Alabama does in Texas and
Nebraska. I know. You're not going to sell. I'm not saying you're going to sell it out.
It was an Easter weekend.
Anyway.
And some of the people left early.
Last year the Gamecocks were up against the Final Four.
The baseball atmosphere on Saturday was
great.
Superb.
Yeah.
Best atmosphere they've had all year, even better than the Clemson series.
The Gamecocks have offered another player tonight from Brooklyn. That's a defensive end, Adissa Isaac. Big-time prospect, a lot of big-time offers, Alabama, LSU, Michigan, North Carolina, Penn State, Virginia Tech, Central Florida, and now South Carolina's jumped in with him.
They don't play football in Yankee country. Come
on, it's kind of weird, isn't it, in Brooklyn?
Yeah, they don't play football.
I mean, from time to time, we see a prospect pop up there.
They don't play football up
Brooklyn.
there. Brooklyn. If you would have told me it was a basketball player, my ears would have perked up.
No, he's probably a two-sport guy. We'll get more information on him for you tomorrow. All right, let's go to Will Muschamp. We heard him talking about the offense after the spring game earlier. Now he breaks down the defense from the spring game, the spring overall, his view on how his favored side of the ball performed.
We got to continue to come at the safety position. I'm concerned about our nickel. Well, who's going to be our nickel? I think Keyshawn Nixon probably is our best fit for that position, but we got to answer some questions. Who's going to play outside? Because he's one of the better guys we've got outside. And then continuing on both lines of scrimmage to have more guys that we feel like can win in the Southeastern Conference.
A couple of your defensive players mentioned last week that they didn't think they were getting the ball out as well as they did last year. Have you noticed the same thing?
Yeah, that's something we keep we chart every day. And T-Rob is in our defensive staff, who I think do a fantastic job of coaching turnovers and emphasizing turnovers. We have not gotten the ball out this spring well at all, which, hey, it's good for our offense.
Right. Have you identified factors, the factors for why?
I think as much as anything, you take a guy like Sky Moore, Dante Sawyer. Dante Sawyer led all defensive linemen in the Southeastern Conference with some sort of havoc on the ball, getting the ball off people. So, those two guys were the two guys that jump out at me. Chris Samon's got his hands on a lot of balls. Jamarcus King got his hand on a lot of balls. So those four guys, I would say, are guys that were missing them. Stephen Montag has done a really good job this spring of getting the ball off people and has always had a knack of getting the ball off people. But I think a little bit of a knack, a little bit of it is from an experience standpoint of being confident, to be in position to make a play and to take a shot at the ball and when to take a shot at the ball. And sometimes with younger players, if it's not natural for them, you got to continue to rep it and talk about it and continue to identify violators of carrying a football.
Of the new guys on the defensive side, were there any in particular that made an impression on you today?
Two guys. Well, I would say through the whole spring, JJ and Tyreek are two guys I'm excited about up front. Rosendo Lewis is going to be a good football player for us. R.J. Roderick showed up, had an interception today, but he's never played defensive back in his life. He's been an option quarterback at Cane Bay. So a guy that's got some natural instincts. He's an outstanding athlete. He can bend in his lower body. Israel is going to be a good football player for us. He's got to continue to get stronger so he can win on some of the routes down the field against some of the bigger receivers. But all of those guys, I'm really excited about on the defensive side of the ball.
When you look at what Brian Edwards was able to do today, do you come away just saying that's a veteran who's good and knows what he's doing, or is there a little concern about where the secondary was when kind of matching up with him?
I would probably say that's a really good football player. That's a difficult guy to cover, especially down the field. He's really strong at the top end of catches. He gets his hand on the ball. He attacks the football down the field, which he did on our sideline against Rashad. We've got to do a better job of playing the ball down the field as a secondary. But he is a guy that is continuing to improve and get better and better, and it's been a good spring for him.
Okay, well, Muschamp, one thing about Muschamp that you have to like is that he's a very positive guy, and he says a lot of the right things that if you are a South Carolina fan, you want to hear. You want to hear about the nuts and bolts of building the program, and I think you hear a lot of that from him, which – I believe, of course, and he should be. He is going to be at South Carolina for the long term. I don't think this is a guy that he continues to do well. Say he gets the Gamecocks an SEC championship, maybe even into the playoffs, and other schools start calling. I don't see him up and bolting. Again, I think he owes a debt of gratitude to South Carolina, and I think when it's all said and done, South Carolina is going to owe a debt of gratitude to Muschamp for building a program from the ground up that is very solid in every way that you want a program to be solid.
Well, I don't think that there's another job that he would want to go after. I mean, what job conceivably, when you have one of these SEC jobs, it's very rare to see someone move from an SEC job to an SEC job, other than if it's like you have a tie there, like Dan Mullen had from Mississippi State going to Florida, or Nick Saban going to, again, the crown jewel job like Alabama. I mean, his ties are kind of all over the place, more in Texas too. I mean, I don't see him wanting to leave for anywhere else, especially after the fact that he's going to get his football facility built, which I think is the kind of crown jewel thing that he's going to have to kind of put his legacy on, to have that indoor facility built. And the fact of the matter is you have the footprint, you have the groundwork laid, and you've improved in your first 2 seasons. I think he knows he wants to accomplish more here.
Well, I think we'll learn a lot more in maybe the years to come about Dan Mullen as well, because it almost seems to be that Will Muschamp, with his attitude and his energy, it almost seems to me, personality-wise, he's better off with a team that's not where winning is demanded. It's where I'm the underdog and they say we can't get it done here.
And it's not that the people don't have high expectations here at South Carolina. It's just that, like you said, the onus is not, die or win or get shot. It's not like that.
There you go.
All right, to Mark and Aiken next up here on Sports Talk. Hello, Mark. How's it going?
Hey, Phil. Doing great. Listen, always a pleasure to talk to you guys. Basketball question for you. Kind of piggyback on what the caller called for a minute ago, but let me ask you this. Now, you got Coach K. He's going to bring in, the top 4 guys next year, and Calipari, he's going to bring in a crop of guys. The longer this goes, and they don't win a national championship at their respective universities, and then you got maybe sell to Kansas or another program out there like that. How does this bode for the coaches themselves? I mean, athletic directors still want national championships, or are they pretty much relegated to, okay, we're going to be one and done, and then that's it? I mean, I'm sure all 4 of these guys, all 3 or 4 of these guys, still want championships, but I mean, the longer they go, Calipari had one, 8, 9 years? I mean, the longer they go, I mean, how does it bode well for them with a job? Because I'm not saying they're going to get fired or anything like that, because their resumes speak for themselves. But the longer they go and don't win one, what's it going to say for their program?
This trend goes against everything Krzyzewski has stood for in his coaching career, and I think he just finally, maybe at the advice of his coaching staff, just gave in to the current trend, and that is, if you're going to recruit the very best high school players in the country, the way the rules are now, you're going to have to live with the one and done. Now, didn't Kentucky win a national championship just a few years ago with a bunch of freshmen?
6.
It's been 6 years.
This is not a large departure. Duke has always gone after these guys. They just haven't gotten them. That's the issue. Now that they're actually signing them, they're actually getting them on campus, and they're actually have a bunch of those guys who are wanting to come to Duke. That's what it is. And again, so much I know is placed on winning a national championship, and that's great for college basketball fans. But so much of these guys and these programs, they chart their success not just on national championships, but how many guys they can get to the league, because they believe that their programs will get as much money and endorsements from that particular perspective, putting guys in big exposure points in the league, maybe get that guy who can maybe be there 4 years.
And because they wear Nike, he had to go after them. Nike's selling their product. That's what they're doing.
Well, I think that if you're a fan, just a fan, and you look at Kay with all the talent and his coaching ability, and they go on an extended national championship drought, I mean, you have to wonder, why are you not better off cultivating players for 2 or 3 years to win championships?
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Most listened to, most talked about, most discussed, and when I'm talking, most handsome sports talk show in the state of South Carolina. Well, I mean, look, compare some of the other talk show hosts to me in terms of looks, and it's not even close, right? Not even going to go there in debate form.
Let's put you in the lineup.
All right, not even going to go there. In just a minute, Wesley Bryan, we're going to hear from him from Augusta. What a big time it is for him. Tomorrow we've got baseball, USC and North Carolina meeting in Charlotte. Willie P. is going to be there for that. Clemson at home to Coastal Carolina, seeking some revenge. So after the weekend in the ACC, Clemson now a game behind NC State, 9-3 to 8-4 in the Atlantic. Duke continues to lead the Coastal, 9-3. North Carolina's picked it up. We're just talking about them. 4-game winning streak, number 12 RPI. They're 8-4. In the SEC, USC's moved up to a tie for 5th with Tennessee. Of course, they'll have the tiebreaker. 4-5, an RPI of 65. Florida and Georgia, 7-2 in the East. Missouri, fraud, 5-4, along with Vanderbilt.
Hey, now they took 2 out of 3 over the weekend over Auburn. That wasn't a slouch thing.
In the West, Ole Miss is 6-3. Arkansas and LSU 5-4, and Auburn has slid to 4-5. In the SoCon, it's Mercer at 5-1. Wofford is 4-2. Citadel 3-3. Furman off to an 0-3 start in the league. Big South, Campbell leading at 8-1. Winthrop at 7-2. PC's 4-5. Charleston Southern is 3-6. CAA, Charleston is tied with Wilmington and Elon for first at 4-2 in league play. Coastal leading the Sun Belt at 8-1 in their Eastern Division. And the Atlantic Sun, Upstate is 1-2 after the first weekend of play. Jacksonville and Kennesaw State and Lipscomb are 2-1. So, of course, the entire world turns its attention to Augusta National this week. We've got a number of South Carolinians in the field, including Wesley Bryan, USC grad, Irmo native, son of George Bryan III, of course, here of Sports Talk fame. He lives in Augusta, Wesley does, so he's gotten in some practice rounds. I'm sure this is an extremely exciting time. After winning the Heritage last year, he punched his ticket for his first ever Masters. And here he is today from the press conference in Augusta talking about just that.
Taking it back to the Heritage, my first win, it was obviously extremely special to be able to knock down my first PGA Tour victory on Easter Sunday. Was obviously extremely special to me. And now having to wait 51 weeks to get here for the Masters is it's been a long wait, but it's one that I'm definitely looking forward to. Growing up in Columbia, South Carolina, it's obviously just a little bit down Highway 20, and I remember coming to the Masters, coming with my dad pretty much every single year since I could remember, and all the memories that you get from here. Like I remember Billy Andrade at one point just flicking me a golf ball behind the 8th tee box, and those are little memories that that they just don't go away. And now that I've actually been living in Augusta and actually spectated last year, came out and watched a few of my buddies. I've followed around Russell Henley for a little bit and John Rahm in the afternoon. And a week later was when I won to punch my ticket to come here. And it's been nice living just a few miles down the road and being able to get over here and play a few practice rounds and get a little more comfortable on the golf course and learn all the little nuances. It's been extremely helpful to have a lot of the local caddies come out with me and walk around and kind of show me where all the pin placements have been in the past, and certain putts that break different ways than what they would appear to break to the naked eye. And the preparation has been thorough to this point, and got a couple more days of it, and hopefully come Thursday I'll be ready to jack in the ground.
You go through a little bit about the 5-week break you've taken for the Masters.
I felt like I was going in a direction that I wasn't seeing any results for the first half of the year, and I knew that I was really close, and I've never been one to play my way into form. You'll see guys like Patrick Reed who can go out and play 9 or 10 events in a row and get a little bit better every single week. I feel like I'm one of those guys that has always done really well off of rest, and even going back to the web.com tour, I remember winning my first web event off of 5 weeks rest. So, and same with the Heritage. I think I had 2 or 3 weeks off before that and won there, and did it one other time on web. So I'm one of those guys. I kind of know what I got to do to get better, and I don't need tournament golf to round me into form. So I've been working really hard these last 5 weeks. It's definitely not been a vacation by any stretch. Probably worked harder than I've ever worked in my entire life to get ready for this one event.
Your best memory of this golf course, and also your first memory of this golf course?
I remember it was pouring down rain on a Monday when we first came. Dad can probably vouch for that. It was probably in 1996 or 7 or so. And like I mentioned earlier, Billy Andre popping me a golf ball back on the tee box. I remember he marked his golf ball with a pencil mark. It was back when you could put a little dot in a lot of golf ball, and it would make a little hole in it, and that was his identifying mark. But I mean, I just remember my dad giving me a $20 bill and saying, "Here, this is your food money for the day," and I'd spend it all up before noon on pimento cheese and egg salad sandwiches, and I'd have to go walking back just to ask him for a little dessert money.
That's great stuff. By the way, if you want to keep in touch with Wesley, he's doing a video diary at the Masters today. He played around with Rory, and that is his diary for today. If you want to check it out, it's on the Masters website, masters.com. And, you know, I'm just sitting here listening and thinking to myself, and I was thinking about this on the drive in this afternoon. Why do we love the Masters so much? Is it like, I mean, even people who don't love baseball get excited about opening day because it's here.
It's renewal. It's all about renewal.
Do you think it's because it's spring and the weather's turned great, and you love the view, you love the sounds, you love how CBS is because most people don't get to go to Augusta. We watch it on television. You love how CBS has televised it over the years. You like the fact that this is the one, thinking about it now, this is the one major sporting event every year where the people who run the event
control everything,
control the television, not the other way around. They dictate to TV what you will do
when we go on,
not
the
air, other way around. Can you imagine if TV said, yeah, we're going to wait and have them tee off at 2 this afternoon. We're not going to have any morning tee times because we want to wait and get better ratings, whatever the case may be. I'm being facetious, but you see what I'm saying? And the master would say, shove it. We won't have television this year, you know?
They're on a 1-year deal every year with CBS.
Absolutely. And CBS walks a very fine line with these guys.
Because you have to call the people who attend patrons. You have to make sure everything is – you can't say that the greens are bikini wax like Gary McCord did a couple of years ago, got himself in the doghouse permanently. He'll never be invited back. You know? Yeah,
they're really sticklers because I was talking to one of the TV guys here in town, and they have been covering the Masters for years and years, and somebody – dropped the ball and failed to get their credential request in one year, and they never gave it back to them.
So bad.
Yeah, never gave it back.
I think the other thing.
They're oversensitive.
Yeah, the other thing is.
No, they're not. They're great people. They do nothing wrong.
Yeah. If you look at the majors, and even though we have changes in pin placements, it's there every year.
Yeah.
It's there.
The fact
every
that it doesn't
year.
move is a big part
Yeah,
of
that is a big key.
But here's the thing. You talk about pin placements, but you know, like on Sunday, they have what's called the traditional Sunday pin placements. The pin placements are the same every Sunday in Augusta.
Yes.
And the players know where they are. What they can't control, of course, are the conditions, where the wind's coming from, how strong the wind is. Is it hot? Is it cool? Is it rainy? Yeah. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
And the important thing is, and why we watch it, is some of them can't control their emotions when they get to the 18th green.
The question everybody was asked today, don't underestimate the importance of having a healthy Tiger in the mix.
And the ratings will be through the roof. All right, that'll do it. Have a great night, everybody. Look forward to being with you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk. We'll see you then.